Welcome to the Greener Grass podcast from BlueBird Botanicals. I'm your host, Lex Pelger. One of the most intriguing parts about the emerging cannabis industry is that it's forced to regulate itself. Questions on testing, worker safety, and the process of how to grow this old herb still abound. Today's guest, Joshua Laterman, founded the National Association of Cannabis Businesses to address these issues. He tells us about what led him to form this group, what is the purpose of a self-regulating industry body, and what he hopes to see for the future of legal cannabis. This show is brought to you by BlueBird Botanicals, to spread education about cannabis and other things on the greener side of life. BlueBird CBD oil comes from farms in southern Colorado and is grown using only water, soil, and sunlight. Go to bluebirdbotanicals.com for more info. Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to be here with Joshua Laterman of the NACB. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Great to be here, Lex.
So, can you tell us what the organization does, just from a top-level view, before we get down into your story with it?
Sure thing. And thanks for having me, Lex. So the NACB, we are the National Association of Cannabis Businesses, and we have a very straightforward mission to help grow cannabis businesses, both licensors and ancillary businesses. We created a self-regulatory organization for the licensors and a credentialing program for the ancillary businesses. And our goal is to be able to hold a membership of the most compliant businesses in the country that are long-term players and are willing to do what is necessary to make U.S. cannabis responsible, ethical, and compliant.
And so it'd be these businesses helping to pay into this to regulate themselves and keep themselves up to a high standard.
Exactly right. So the concept of a self-regulatory organization finds a proxy on Wall Street with FINRA, which manages the securities industry, or maybe a more accessible concept with the Motion Picture Association of America. And the general concept of a self-regulatory organization is an industry which is facing uncertainty, unclear laws and standards, terrific growth. Well, that industry is facing a future where it will either be regulated by government standards, which may not be so bespoke, or it can take the lead, begin to regulate itself with standards meant to fulfill the federal government, and hope that that self-regulatory organization satisfies the federal government. We think that's a win-win for cannabis license holders if they can show that they can regulate themselves in a manner which will satisfy both state and federal regulatory authorities without having to build a new regulatory structure around them.
Excellent. And so on the nitty-gritty of the actual science for your organization, what would they be looking at these individual cannabis businesses in terms of the safety and standards that are still being figured out for this industry?
Sure thing. So we look to three proofs for our members. We believe if you're going to be a responsible, ethical, compliant cannabis business, you should be able to show that you are state compliant every day. That's our first proof. Our second proof relates to standards that we are building, and we are developing national standards to demonstrate to regulators that the industry can police itself. We recently came out with our second standard on commercial advertising and marketing, and so our members will be state compliant, will continue to help us build national standards, which may be on top of your state regulations, in excess of your state regulations, but will help position you well, we think, with the federal regulators. And then the third aspect of our self-regulatory organization is the ability to confirm enhanced due diligence if you have bank accounts. And so, we've heard from the federal government that state laws are insufficient. Sessions has said that. We've heard the very strong concerns about allowing access to our capital markets to bad players and what effect that could have. And so we believe the structure we propose, which will be backed by software to audit your compliance of state compliance, build and comply with extra national standards, and show that you meet enhanced due diligence if you hold a bank account. And then what we will do for you is to take your good behavior each day across those three spectrums, and we'll blockchain it. So the goal of our organization ultimately is to deliver a higher level of credentialed cannabis businesses which meet state, national standards, and enhance due diligence across banking, and have a ledger of record each day to show their good behavior. Does that make sense, Lex?
It does, and it's really a fascinating and very forward-thinking way of going about it, especially the use of blockchains.
Sure thing. For blockchain, I know there are a lot of other outlets out there for cryptocurrency and such. We use it for its purest form. And in fact, when I refer to blockchain, I'm referring to blockchain technology because perhaps there are 10 or 20 more that have sprouted out since. But what we want to deliver is an auditable ledger of record where we know it may be received by someone who is suspicious, right? If you have a federal auditor who has conditioned to look at cannabis in its criminal past and receives financial statements or audited records, they may be skeptical about the quality and authenticity of the records. However, if you use blockchain or an equivalent, we will develop an immutable ledger of record. So the records can't be changed over the course of time. Each day they'll be fixed. And while, of course, there are no guarantees of trustworthiness in this world, we believe that using the blockchain, creating an immutable ledger of record that'll span the entire time someone is with our SRO, so we hope they'll be buying the software in January and a member for life, that ledger of record is something they can take to regulators or to institutions to show what type of quality business they are.
And so, how did you first come to start thinking about these things? Was it a personal connection that brought you into this field?
I remember watching a television show maybe 3.5 years ago, and there were several with the theme of a reporter and a person holding a bag of cash outside of a fence. And they would say, we're outside of the Federal Reserve. You may think we're trying to get money out of the Federal Reserve. We're actually trying to get the money in to be banked. And, that's really where I had an aha moment. Perhaps we could find a way to solve for this. As a former general counsel of a public bank, I'm very aware of the dangers that exist in a cash economy. And I can tell you, and I think Manushin made mention of this, that the ability to audit and to put the cash of cannabis someplace is a valuable federal priority. The federal government understands, and the state governments understand, that having it go from $7 billion to $9 billion to $12 billion of cash with no home, well, cash economies, bad things happen, right? I've never been a purchaser in a cash economy, but I hear, that's where guns and drugs and human trafficking, of course, occur because there is no auditability or traces of it. And I believe, going back to the first time seeing this TV opportunity of how can we help the cannabis businesses that have cash, I thought maybe we could come up with a plan to do this, and it begins with self-regulation.
So banking was an important early need. What else did you see in the creation of NACB that was a need for the industry that you could help with?
Sure. Well, I think the industry needs to be handled very carefully. And just like you buy title insurance when you buy real estate, I think there are a couple of missing procedures that cannabis investors, cannabis owners, cannabis affiliates, that they need to put in place. And what they need to address is the trust information gap that exists. It's very hard to identify a license holder or someone who is newly providing packaging to cannabis. Are they a good actor or a bad actor? Are they going to deliver what they promised to do? Are they going to deliver something else? Are they going to fail to deliver entirely? And it's very hard to judge who you should be transacting with. So our hope with the National Association of Cannabis Businesses as a SRO, we can create an organization where we know who the good players are and demonstrate it through auditable daily data, right? If you have that type of proof, it's not a guarantee you're dealing with a trustworthy person, but it's extremely likely that they are who they say they are. And similarly, we provide a credentialing service for affiliates. Is it easy to know who the right nutrient, the right lighting, the right hydro person is? No. Do we hear stories all the time from our members and from other license holders that they made a contract with someone who failed to deliver or, in fact, did worse? So those frictions are costing cannabis money. They're creating contractual issues. They're stymieing the growth of the good businesses. If we can have at least a community where there is an identified set of businesses who have been credentialed and license holders who are similarly credentialed, well, we think that that is a forum for progress, Lex.
And who were the early players who got excited about this as you got it off the ground?
So, I'd love to give a shout out to Mara Gordon and to Love's Oven. We've been in Denver. John Cooper of Ebu, Dixie's come on board. We're hoping to finalize our relationship with two great leaders, Native Roots and Candescent, very shortly. We have big and small players. On the East Coast, we represent Forward, Grow. We've tried to build a membership that is geographically diverse, product diverse, and representative of our country. I'd be remiss without saying I've taken a lot of lessons from Wanda James at Simply Pure as well. Really, there have been so many contributors to our education and introduction to the industry. But Lex, we've gone very slow. Right now, we only have 30 members because we only invited those 30 members to be credentialed and join us and to help build our standards. And we'd be happy to accept some new leadership from Washington or Oregon or Vegas. If you're hearing this podcast and you feel that you're a long-term player and you're ready to do more and be thoughtful for the industry, we'd love to talk to you. I don't know, Lex, if you happen to see what happened with e-cigarettes and the FDA a couple of weeks ago with those Juul e-cigarettes. Did you see that news?
Yeah. But please share more.
Yeah, so we see, and just for the folks on the podcast, a couple of weeks ago, the FDA announced its intention to investigate the e-cigarette industry, and in particular, the manufacturers of the very popular Juul e-cigarette. And I take no stance on this. The Juul e-cigarette's been very popular. I am aware that kids in my kids' high school were using it, and we had a problem, within the high school. And the FDA came in and said, hey, look, there are just too many underage children using these e-cigarettes, and therefore we have a concern at 3 levels that it's possibly been marketed to children, that there were campaigns or nomenclature built to be attractive to children, or that the chemistry 6 times stronger than a cigarette is something that was meant to create new converts to nicotine usage, if you will. And then even that the design of the actual very cool shaped e-cigarette was intentional. I think that Juul and the others have brought up some, very strong counterpoints. But the fact remains there are a lot of underage kids using these e-cigarettes, and that at least some of the players use nomenclature that is very kid-friendly, cotton candy, luscious cherry, other names, or packaging which could look very attractive to a young person who thinks that princesses or carnivals or clowns or big fruit look appealing, right? And so I'm not sure how this is going to play out for the e-cigarette industry, but I can tell you that if it's already hit the e-cigarette industry, there is every reason to expect that these type of standards will be required out of U.S. cannabis at some point, that cannabis does not use a nomenclature which is appealing to kids. And by way of example, I love Girl Scout cookies, but if you want to gain more federal recognition to be a responsible industry, I'd strongly suggest, and our members have agreed, we're not going to use kid-friendly nomenclature. Call it GSC. Similarly, we don't want to use packaging which has, maybe whimsical, fun stuff, but could clearly be attractive to a young girl who likes Barbies or Cinderellas or clowns or things of that nature. And just to show that we're in tune with the learning that's going on around the United States, we also don't want packaging which is misogynistic and could be considered to be very disrespectful to women and emblematic of the booty rap kind of imagery that we also don't want for our industry. If cannabis is going to grow and be a pure driver in the United States, we have to take some effort to do a bit more, to be ready, and to separate from people who feel that it is still vitally important to brand in that manner.
That's a lot to ask of people. They aren't easy decisions to make for some companies to make a sacrifice like that.
You're right, Lex. And generally, it's probably going to cost a little bit more to be more compliant. But what I would wager, and I've been an advisor to banks and families and companies for most of my life, if your goal is to be a short-term player and make maximum margin and profits right now, I understand that what we're offering at the NACB is unappealing. However, if you look at your business as a long-term business and your goal is one to create something of value, to power a new industry, to hand it off to your family, or perhaps to sell it for a very large value when prohibition is lifted, I know the path, I know the books and records that you will need to win in that future. Because our full team has been doing transactions and dealing in banking our whole careers. And to feel comfortable, an institution, your future buyer, needs to see very clean books and records. And if you have the foresight to begin those books and records with us in 2018 or 2019, come 5 years from now, when you have 5 years of a ledger of record of good compliance, I like our members' chances most for being able to achieve their dreams.
That makes sense. That would help a lot for these. So when an NACB first started, how did you decide what to start focusing on there in the beginning when there were so many different issues that you could be tackling?
Sure thing. There were so many, and at first we were really focusing on banking and what we could do on banking until it really became a bit more clear that it was somewhat of a binary pursuit. If the federal government does not change the law, we could not find a direct path for banking. And so we pivoted to say, look, we believe that the building of good books and records will accelerate your ability to get banking or to get capital, or in a bad case scenario, to defend your business. So the premise of the ledger of record being state law, national standards, and enhanced due diligence was the best collection of data we could come up with to show you're a good player. It's hard to show you're a good player. People assume, if they don't like cannabis, that some days you're a bad player. But if you're in our organization and you are applying our software come the new year, you'll be able to show each day that you're a good player. Our focus on packaging and labeling, which we announced in February, I think is an effort to do something which could be constructive, an immediate benefit, something which can also benefit the consumers. I do see a future where a consumer will perhaps select where they shop based on how well regarded the dispensary is or the type of products that they are putting on their shelves. And so if you're a buyer who would prefer to buy from someone who is very likely paying their taxes, providing thought leadership to develop the industry more, does not sell products which are child-friendly or misogynistic, I don't know if it's the right word, well, then you can choose as a consumer. And there'll be labeling of stores, which are NACB stores, and there'll be labeling of products which are blue ribbon products. The more we can help accelerate a higher standard across the board, I think the more both the license holders will benefit and the consumers will benefit as well, Lex.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the word blue ribbon. The name of your affiliate program is the Blue Ribbon Affiliate Program, correct?
Exactly. So this was quite an interesting thing because we came out as a self-regulatory organization. We're focused on representing the best license holders in the country. But no sooner after we announced in June of last year, over 400 what we call ancillary businesses organically reached out to us. And they said, hey, we may not be a license holder. We may be a lighting business or a fertilizer business or hydroponics or glass, or maybe we're accountants or lawyers. But we believe in the mission of the NACB. We believe for U.S. cannabis to achieve its fullest potential, a responsible U.S. cannabis needs to emerge, and we believe that you are on track with that. And we also would like to be able to sell our services to your great members. So what can you do for us? And so we came out with the Blue Ribbon Affiliate Program. If you are an unlicensed business, meaning you don't have a cannabis license, but you would like exposure or the opportunity to sell into U.S. cannabis, well, our Blue Ribbon program will credential you over 28 points. You come and ask us for it. We credential you, and if you come through clean, you get our Blue Ribbon. You are able to market that you have done more than the rest. And of course, you're going to begin to support our effort wherever our principles align with both a license holder and someone who's not a license holder. You're promising to do that, right? So you're not going to see blue ribbons who are advertising a kid-friendly way, a misogynistic way, through packaging which is not child safe. You know, we're going to be on top of that. And look, it's a big community. We'd like to be able to represent everyone. We believe we have the path, which is help the people who are critical of you or the people that want to invest in you, help them trust you more. And the way you can do that is to be more transparent, to be credentialed, and go from there.
How many people are working there now, and what is everybody up to?
So thanks for asking again. You know, we have a roster of advisors. If you come to visit us at NACB.com or on Facebook or LinkedIn, we have the stories of the people behind our organization, but we've tried to be heavy on advisors that come from the federal government. And I'm most proud of being advised by the former Chief of Staff of the DEA under Bush, the former Chief of Staff of the Department of Justice, also under Bush, and a number of former White House and regulatory colleagues who all generally believe the SRO could be the solution for U.S. cannabis and a solution that would benefit the government, the federal government, the safeguards and security that the federal government is trying to maintain, as well as deliver the opportunities to the states, the license holders in the states, and the investors around the table. And I think that we're going to continue because the U.S. cannabis needs more expert advisors who understand the banking world, the capital markets world, and these new types of advisory services which are relevant in a market which is going to eclipse $9 billion. So we will continue to look for thought leaders who would like to present objective thought leadership and add them to our team as we grow, Lex.
And so what do you have coming up in the near future that you're most excited about in terms of initiatives and ideas?
In June, we're going to be having our second symposium. So the symposium is going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be covering tax and accounting. It's sponsored by Cohn Resnick, a national accounting firm that we found because we thought they were very high quality and able to deliver accounting services across the United States. And the symposiums generally are an opportunity where we bring together our members, our blue ribbons, and then a team of tier one experts which are seldom seen by the cannabis world. So here we will be bringing tax advisors from some of the most notable law firms in the country, including Jones Day, Cadwalader, King and Spalding, Tories from Canada, and a bunch of other folks. And at the forum, we look at cannabis, and we did one in D.C. just several months back on banking and accounting. This one will be on tax and accounting, and we look at the issues from state law, federal law, capital markets, what's happening in the news. And our goal is to bring together a community of the tier one advisors so that we can all begin to share thoughts and make connections and develop an understanding of how to best serve U.S. cannabis because it's a new art. And we also provide an opportunity or a forum to expose these tier one advisors to what we believe are the best of the best, our credentialed members and blue ribbon affiliates. And we had a robust conversation in D.C. on banking. Again, if you check our website out, NACB.com, news and events, all 11 presentations are available and free. We want to promote this thought leadership. So, you know, if you feel that you could benefit from a very high-level introduction and discussion about tax and accounting and how that impacts U.S. cannabis, we welcome you. I would love to mention our second product that we just launched is this Blue Ribbon affiliate program. And so if you're a business that just is thinking about sticking its toe in the cannabis water and you have not even served a client, but you know that you're a well-run business, well, we can credential you and we will get behind you, showing the cannabis world that you are a credible business, a service they should consider, a shortlist candidate. And that can be for a person who is producing nutrients, hydro, lighting, modular greenhouses, or an accounting firm or law firm or investor. We want to make sure that we are credentialing you so that we are delivering a good player. You'll know that if someone is a blue ribbon, they don't have a scary history behind them, and we've gone very deep. And so that's our second product alongside the symposiums. Last, Lex, and this is not so much of a product, but we're always looking for thought leaders. And so I'm calling out to you, wherever this podcast is being listened to, if you are a long-term player and a license holder, and you believe that the right strategy is to do a bit more, we'd love to hear from you and consider whether you could be a candidate for our Standards Governance Board. This year it's free, but you must take time with us to do the rulemaking, and you must take a little time with us to prototype and test our technology. So thanks for the opportunity to shill a little bit there, Lex.
Excellent. And so the last question I'll ask before I let you go, if we could put you in charge of the federal laws around cannabis in general, what would be the most important to you that you would start changing right away, and how would you like to see it?
Wow. I'd love to have that wand, Lex. Well, I think that I would try to come up with a policy that synchronized the priorities of enforcement, justice, and treasury. And, currently I think it's been said by the different leaders, they're not so much in sync. So I would try to gain a coordinated policy amongst that trifecta. And I think that the goal, which I believe the Treasury finds to be a priority, would be how can we bank the cannabis dollars such that the cash economy is not growing on our streets. And the answer that and it's a bit of a self-serving answer, but the answer I would give is, if you can be credentialed by the NACB, you are going to have fulfilled the proofs which satisfy Tier 1 banking, so why not bank those businesses? And maybe banking isn't for everyone. Maybe banking begins only with the most super compliant. Maybe you have to do a little bit more in terms of transparency to begin getting real financial services beyond just checking. But the path is clear. The path is through auditability and data that cannot be fudged, and that can provide a basis for a dialogue with the naysayers about who is actually being banked. But without question, the biggest urgent thing I believe in the industry is to figure out how to take the cash off the streets. And if California is as successful as projected, they're going to be sitting on $7 billion of their own in the next 12 months and desperately need a solution.
I would love to give you that wand. That would be great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to share with us today about the work of the NACB, and thanks for starting it to help bring cannabis better for everybody.
Hey, Lex, thanks for having me on the show. Look forward to coming back sometime.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Greener Grass is a BlueBird Botanicals podcast. Their CBD oil supports a healthy body and a strong endocannabinoid system. They've got friendly customer service who can answer any of your questions, and the number is right there at the top of their webpage. But, per the FDA, they won't be able to make any medical claims for these nutritional supplements. That's also the reason you'll hear little about CBD on this show. There's no need for us to add more evidence about CBD when a simple Google search will give you more than you can read in a month of Sundays. So this show covers the cannabis world and more with editorial freedom from BlueBird Botanicals. Thanks for joining the Greener Grass podcast. As always, our audio alchemist is Matt Payne. The Gypsy Jazz theme music comes from Brett Van Donsel. Our beautiful bird sounds are courtesy of Lang Elliott. And I'm your host, Lex Pelger, wishing you a bright green day.